They will set a labor time like the next day or something, so that I can check on it. And now so they change that. So
I wish you guys
I'm very fortunate.
Where they had that tap in there one time, we went out there for that generator. Is that where they gotta change the line?
There was a band,
Abandoned, why?
because that will be a high pressure line.
That was the one that was supposed to be Cripple Creek.
Don't mutilating it now, it does.
But doesn't have to be high pressure. It makes it safer.
We're going down there.
It's only got 4 people.
All three searches.
I don't. I sound like, hi, Helen. Want to get some snacks?
Yeah, I do, real fast, yeah.
How you doing?
Like those brownies?
Not my favorite.
No. Then I ended up bringing beer anyway.
I like them more of a cake.
Take care of something.
I
do. Yes.
A little more of a cake texture. They're good. But, you know,
They're
they're gooier than the cake texture.
It is, yes. Now it's intended.
What's that?
I intended to make them.
Well, that's okay. You asked me.
No, I wanted your opinion.
They get real chocolatey that way.
And there's a lot of chocolate.
Yeah, I know it.
There is always chocolate.
You give it to my dog, it'll kill him. No. Actually, I've been getting my dog worked up with chocolate. Now we're gonna have different committees present.
Yeah, tonight, well, they don't present, you just walk through. Where's your plan? You didn't bring it. Do you want one?
Do I need one?
It would be, well, I'm gonna display it on the screen.
You there?
Really?
I'm back on the cool side.
You're back on the cool kid side?
I do need a map.
They keep changing you around, huh?
Hi.
Hi, Alan. Hi, Lee. We're all alone over on that side. All alone.
Mhm.
Hi, John.
How you doing?
Good. Hi, Sally.
Hi, Larry.
Sorry
You
about
should have
that.
stayed, it was a really interesting meeting.
Well, I thought about that. I thought, well, this would be good stuff to listen to.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, I thought, well, I don't want to be a distraction. You have the agenda, you gotta get through. Another time.
Yeah.
You'll tell us.
Now they're running out of bottles for water, plastic bottles. And a lot of the stores don't have any water because no plastic bottles. Why not?
Keep me honest tonight, man. I didn't realize that DOLA refuses us to go along to see that we're keeping you.
I thought
get
that
with
was,
the program.
I think that's the first one I've seen of DOLA.
You saw the guy out on,
I'm gonna turn this off.
No, I just come, I was coming, I didn't know that DOLA refuses us to go along to check that we're keeping stuff straight and narrow.
Because they're paying for half of it, that $50,000 grant.
Somehow, he with a goal thinks he has something to do with the rules. Imagine that.
just ask Mike.
It's always true, whoever has the goal next to this.
You has to go rules.
Yeah.
Tired?
Just long days, we've been busy. Got businesses back in a
Down here
frenzy thing going.
at your shop, huh? Busy.
Yeah, we're busy all day.
Well, that's good.
Couple hundred people.
Wow, it is. You got a great location. You can't miss it. It is a very good spot.
Thanks to you.
I'll be able to see tonight.
Michael,
Read anyway.
my building is Alpine Firelands. And
Is this it, Russ?
You make okay?
John and I have no rules. He just pays the rent and gets things fixed and I pay for it.
You ready? Laura?
John also plows my driveway. He throws that in.
Folks, the clock on the wall says it's time, so we'll bring to order the meeting of the Planning Commission of Woodland Park for their, August 12th meeting. It's a work session now. So there's four of us. We don't have a quorum, and we don't need a quorum for this, so there's nothing we'll vote or do anything to that degree. We're just going to go over the comprehensive plan. And with that,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will be reviewing 2 chapters this evening. We'll begin with the water and wastewater chapter. We do have our consultant on Zoom, Christy Bruce, here this evening, so she will be able to chime in if you have any questions from the water and wastewater group. Mr. Skip Howes was the chairman, and we have Kip Wiley here from the staff. And then for the second chapter that we will be perusing through is public safety and emergency management, which also includes a new section regarding resiliency. And their chairman is Mike Nakai, and from the police department, we have Robin Lundberg here. Lindberg. Lindberg. Yeah, Robin's been an amazing asset to this group. So she's a dispatcher and also oversees the emergency management liaison position to the county. So with that, let's just go ahead and dive in. I will share my screen and begin with chapter 9, water and wastewater. And their vision is to provide reliable utility services to the community while planning responsibly for the future and identifying efficiencies and resources where possible. So a terrific vision for our very important resource of
Is
water.
where possible superfluous? Is it a sharper vision just to drop those words?
what are you trying to do?
No,
Lee, you want to speak into your mic?
no, I just said the vision a little sharper if you drop where possible. So just identifying efficiencies and resources.
Good idea.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
You know,
And Christy, yeah, make sure that the committee chair and staff are good with that too. And Christy is taking notes. She did that for us the last time. Okay. So moving forward, we have 3 paragraphs of an introduction or background. When I reviewed this recently, I think the second sentence is very, very critical because it sets the stage for our build-out scenario, which the current residential build-out scenario maximizes the future water supply at a population of 13,600, which is equivalent to 0.11 acre feet per capita per year. I think that sentence needs a little bit more explanation. That is calculated, and this 13,600 is actually a planned build out that was established 10 years ago when the comprehensive plan and the city agreed to add 400 additional high priority units to the city. If you were to divide the 0.117 acre feet into the limited maximum water resource, which is 1,475 acre feet, we actually get a result of 12,600. So that's really the population maximum that our current 1,475 acre feet can support.
I saw that number, it would say, the 13.6 and then in parentheses 12.6 further on.
Right. So I
So
think
that's the explanation.
that's the explanation. I think we need to, and I can work with Christy on just really defining that a little bit more clearer so that we know where the 13,600 comes from as well, which is the additional 400 units that was agreed to back in 2010. And we have actually added those units by two actions. The first is by rezoning the Tamarack Parkway properties that from heavy service commercial light industrial to multifamily, which added about 300 units to that area. And then the other additional was to rezone for Trail Ridge town apartments. It had residential, the Trail Ridge apartment complex had residential already assigned to that land, but it was rezoned to include higher density. There was an old mobile home park on that site. So we've absorbed those 400 units to reach a population of 13.6. And you're probably asking us, well, why did we take that risk to add 400 units? And the reason is that we are seeing less and less water consumption for a number of reasons. Each household, the newer households have low flow water fixtures. So they are using fewer gallons of water in the new developments. So all these new apartments and new single families are more efficient. And then people overall, not only in landscaping, but just our conscientiousness of the use of water. So this per capita value of 0.117, we expect may continue to go down. And that per capita amount also includes all the commercial use, the city use, and a small cushion in our build out.
Sally, implicit in per capita must be assumptions about residences, what's the typical unit size and such. I don't know how that's factored in and such too. It's also something which changes in general. I don't know in Woodland Park, but in general, family size, the number of people per unit has slowly been declining nationally.
It has, yes. So right now it's based on 2.47 people per household.
And then we receive information from Christie too, with background information saying that the family size is significantly lower than 2.47.
Christy, did your research show our household size continuing to reduce?
I need to look at that again. I think that I did see it reduce slightly. I know the new census numbers came out today, so I will look at that again and see if there is information on that population per household with the newest data.
And Kip, did I explain all of that? You can correct me. He's the water guru.
Yes, you did. I would say the only X factor is Karis and how many people are renting rooms in homes at this point. So that's just a little bit of an X factor.
So what he's saying is that sometimes we're kind of seeing a higher household number simply because of people bunking up in some of the single family homes.
So maybe all in all, it might be still close to 2.5.
Might be.
And underlying this, there's actually, the real computation is some amount per household. And we assume, for information purpose, we think that'll be so many people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then if we ever build dormitories, or if Karis ever builds dormitories, it'd fall into a different category, if you will. So it's not necessarily residential, it's commercial. So even though it's residential use.
Well, in fact, in 2012 to 2014, when the planned unit development for the college was approved, there was an entitlement to have 500 bedrooms in terms of dormitories. And at that time, Mr. Schultz, Kip's predecessor, slotted that as commercial use, not household or residential. Dormitories are classified as group quarters with the population projections because they're temporary students.
Yep, they would not be occupied year round. It'd be just when class is in session. That's the theory behind it.
So we'll work on this first paragraph to make sure that it reflects that history and the calculations, and make sure it's very clear for somebody in the future that can pick this up and understand how we calculate our build out numbers.
I think it's also important to point out too, Sally, that we recognize that as a subcommittee. And we realized that in 2010, that was a static number. And we encourage that accounting be ongoing and keep that fluid and keep it up to date for wherever we are with the various social economic trends and population and so on and so forth, that we would do that.
And the other thing I wanted to draw your attention to is the last sentence of this first paragraph where it says that we've roughly increased by 600 people over the last decade and 273 commercial customers. Actually, the commercial customers, that is about our total number of commercial customers. So we need to tweak that. I wish I could enlarge this a little bit. How do I do that? Here we go.
Sally, that sentence also refers to, and there's other references to customers outside of the city limits.
Yes.
There's reference to it, but it's not discussed about policies on that. And, will that always continue that amount? Can that amount get bigger? Can it get smaller? Or is that a matter for discretion of the city council over time?
You can grow a little bit, but not much.
So those are controlled by outside water and sewer user agreements. And they are written in such a way that they're in perpetuity. We can force annexations if they become eligible for annexation. We haven't done that. It's kind of a unique situation for those 250 outside water users.
So I would infer that the view is those will continue as they were, but the likelihood of expansion is probably somewhat small unless the city decided to do so.
Up to council's discretion.
Right.
Most of the outside user agreements already, there might be a couple vacant lots that can still connect to city services that are outside city limits, but very few that already have those agreements, but we're not looking at
Right.
bringing anybody else in to serve them with water or sewer.
Aren't they assessed a different rate?
Yes. They're double
tap
rates, double
and
fees.
Double water rates.
Yep.
I believe.
I think if you've read the growth management section of the plan that we'll talk about later, a couple of weeks, there's a statement discouraging annexations because of that very reason. And there's also comments in this section discouraging annexation because of that reason.
Okay. The other two paragraphs I thought were pretty good.
Sally, I have, is it potable water used on the golf course now?
It's a
I
good thing
thought it
we
was
have
already
Kip.
Kip, if it's easier, you can just
Yeah.
stand there.
I'll just take the mic so you can't see me talking. In the audience. The golf course, back in 2017-18, when we expanded the wastewater plant, we put in the reuse component. That is in place, ready to go. The golf course has started to just this year to fill out the proper paperwork to the state to make that happen.
Oh, so it's not already happening. Okay.
Nope.
Thank you.
It's ready, but
Close.
just need approval from the
Close.
state.
That's all.
And since we're talking about the reuse of the water on the wastewater plant, Christy, this label needs to be wastewater plant, not water.
Yes, thank you.
Makes you thirsty,
Yeah, yeah. So this was,
literally.
And spelled correctly.
yes,
Oh, yes.
Oh,
It's
yes.
misspelled.
treatment is misspelled. Then there is a water and wastewater map that shows areas that are currently not served by sewer and not served by water or sewer.
What was the source of that? Has that been reviewed?
Oh. I don't know if I can move that.
Hi there. Yeah, so to create that map, we received pipeline information for the whole city, but as that information tends to be secure, we didn't want to illustrate it. So we really generally identified those areas that did not have current infrastructure. And we're very open to making it, to changing it, but it can be somewhat helpful just to see, what areas don't have service currently.
I like the map when I note the far southeast corner, Mountain Glen Court, does not have sewer service. I'm not sure further back from it, but that street does not.
Down here.
Yeah, it's just reflecting water and sewer. We do serve water down there.
Okay, the reason it's there's a teal color, it says areas not served by sewer, and there's no coloration down the southeast corner.
The
Chris-
whole south side.
Yeah, Christy, this block needs to be extended to include all of this reach south of
Okay.
10.
Thank you.
Good point.
Okay. And then our DOLA representatives did review this. They would like for us to note the other water and sewer districts in this chapter so that we know what other service providers there are. So we'll be adding that. And there's the Teller County Water and Sanitation District number 1, which is what we refer to as the Paint Pony Water District. There's Westwood Lakes. And Kip, you mentioned another one today in our utilities meeting.
Within
Yeah.
city limits.
No, they're outside the city limits.
Up Trout Creek Road wouldn't be on this map.
Oh, Rosewood Hills. That's what it was. Rosewood Hills.
I mean, I could fill this map with a bunch of information, so I'd like to just leave it to the water and the sewer.
Okay.
I do think the other thing that Dola wanted to see on this map is the location of the water and wastewater treatment. So those will be added as well.
Maybe our water tanks might be
Like
kind
I
of,
said, I could fill it with a
Oh,
bunch of
you could.
information. Well, PRVs and pressure sustaining valves and everything.
PRV is a pressure reducing valve. Might be a security.
The more vague, the better.
Ah, good point.
So
Yeah.
just what Christy was referring to at the beginning, just for security reasons, you don't want to put all your infrastructure on.
Okay. Good idea. Okay, so let's move into goals, objectives, and actions. This is a fairly robust section. The subcommittee did a super job working on these goals, objectives. And I'm just going to read the goal and each objective. And then if you have any questions about the actions, just step us through each section. So goal number 1 is provide a safe, reliable, and aesthetically pleasing, which is taste, odor, clarity, water supply in a cost-efficient, environmentally sound manner. With the first objective is deliver superior services to the city's water customers in the everyday operation of the city's water system. And then there are 3 actions under that. Which all seem reasonable. Objective number 2 is maintaining appropriate rates and fees for the city's water system operations. Commission a rate study to compare Woodland Park to other communities and publish results for users. And also 3 actions, which is continuing the water tap management plan, which has served the city really well. Reviewing the capital projects and debt service. Kip does the reconciliation report every year with City Council, which is one of the best planning documents we have. And then establish rates, budgets, debt reserves, and operations that enough reserve in order to withstand economic recessions.
Sally, one observation, maybe it's on the form of this. The second sentence of the objective, commission a rate study, sounds like an action item, and it's the objective is to maintain appropriate rates. And so there's no action item below to do the study, whereas I think commission a rate study is in fact an action item as 1, 2, 4, or put it first, whatever fits best.
I think that's a good point. So we could pull out the second and third sentence from the objective and make that an action 1.24.
Good idea.
1.2.4.
I might also add that under water action 1.2.1 talks about the water tap management plan. And Sally was right on, and I want to echo that statement that she made, that the city has done a very excellent job of managing water taps. And that water plan was crafted actually through the code. You were probably involved with that when that came through. But the code is very specific on thinking of various scenarios of how water taps would be managed how they would be issued, how they would fit in with residential and other uses. It's very comprehensive, it's very well written, it's very well implemented. It's a very good specific to implement many of the goals and objectives of the land.
Just for my reference, what section are those in? Actually, I should probably take a look. at
It's in the utilities chapter of the municipal code.
Just read the whole thing, lady.
Yeah, I know.
You'll enjoy it. It's good.
Okay, moving on to objective 1.3, improve environmental sensitivity and safety for the city's water system, which has actually 7 actions under it. Summarizing those 7 actions. First one is incorporating energy savings and sustainability technologies. Second one is to improve security measures for the water system. Robin's happy to hear that. The next objective number 3 is to implement a source water protection plan. Maybe Kip, you'd like to speak about what exactly that would mean. Number 4 is the cross control connection program, which is reviewed on an annual basis. And Kip, you might want to explain what that means. Number 5 is educating our water customers. Number 6 is working with the Teller County Wildfire Council to implement wildfire protection plan as it relates to our utility infrastructure. And we just received a grant to thin around 6 acres of our water tank sites. So we're going to be implementing that. And then supporting erosion control. So the source water protection plan and the cross connection control program.
Source water protection plan is basically just a plan that you have to evaluate the drainages where you collect your local water. It's already a requirement that we publish in our water quality report. It's just an ongoing thing that needs to always occur with our water supply. The cross connection action item is basically back in 2010-ish. The state implemented a requirement to where every user of our water system has to have a backflow preventer, meaning water cannot pass from the dwelling unit into the public water system. So siphoning can occur and you could contaminate the water system. If you ever have a water emergency or a break, a vacuum is typically created that could pull water out of the house into the public system, and those backflow preventers or those cross connection devices prevent that from happening. So those have to be installed on every dwelling, every commercial building, you name it, and those are inspected annually.
KIP is the code and actually the plan. But it says to implement the city's cross connection control program.
So by implementing,
Yes.
we have staff that has to track, enforce all of those devices through our city.
So we are doing that continually,
Yes.
ongoing.
So we had to be in compliance. I think it was 90% in compliance about 3 years ago, and then move into 100% compliance as of right now. It's a lot of pushback. You can imagine as a business owner, you don't want to have to test your backflow preventer or your cross connection device every year, but you have to. And if you don't, we have to shut your water off. So, and then on all new builds for residential, we have meter loops that are installed that also prevent that from the residential side as well. Lots of work all the time.
And I'll never forget having to buy the backflow prevention device for Meadowood Park on the irrigation system because it was thousands of dollars.
Well, the city spends thousands of dollars every year testing our own facilities. So just something we have to do.
Money well spent.
Yes, yes, we don't want our potable water to be contaminated. Thanks. Okay. Any
Kip,
other?
before you leave, on this particular objective, underwater action 1.36, and we'll talk about this a little bit further in the next discussion dealing with emergency services. It talks about to implement the community wildfire protection plan. And when I'm reading the plan, I'm very confused what that means, because there's the Teller County management plan. There's the Northeast Teller County Fire Protection District plan, an area. I'm confused. What is our actual community wildfire protection plan? Do you know?
I do not.
Do you know,
So,
Sally?
yes, it only relates to utilities. Mike actually has a copy of that plan right there. It was done in conjunction with CUSP. They led the development of that plan. It has been revised. It was initially established maybe 10 years ago. And then it was revised maybe about 5 years ago. They recommend updating these every 5 years.
And as Skip just pointed out, just from the utility standpoint, make sure we comply. Hence the thinning and fire mitigation around our tanks and other facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later on too, if you want to stick around for that.
Might it be helpful to indicate right there that it's the community welfare protection plan for utilities and or add it to the relevant documents at the end of the text? It says that it relates to utilities.
It does.
Okay. That that plan then should simply just be at the end, relevant documents.
So I just want to make a quick comment, just for a quick observation. The utility subcommittee met about 3 to 4 times for what, 2 hours?
Yeah.
Going page by page.
At least
So
2 beers.
we might be
apiece.
here a while. So just food for thought.
Okay. Moving on to goal 2. It's kind of lengthy here. Identify the city's water resources to make water available to accommodate the city's existing population and to serve potential future growth and development, as well as development of public, institutional, commercial, industrial properties and residential properties, including market rate, attainable, and community residential housing. The city recognizes that its water supply and resources are a valuable and limited resource that need to be utilized efficiently to meet the needs of the community. It is quite long for a goal. And I was kind of thinking, actually, that last sentence about recognizing the resource is in the background. And we can just, make sure that the background is strong in that area.
Remove the last sentence.
Move, yes, please. And reflect that in the background strongly. Okay. There are, under this goal, 2 objectives. The first objective is ensure that the city's water system has adequate capacity and infrastructure available to accommodate new development and redevelopment in compliance with the city's planned full build-out population of 13,600 and the water service population of 12,600, and or incurring unaffordable costs for additional water development.
I guess I would draw the attention to the commission of Water Action 2.1.6, which talks about the appropriation of a limited water supply and full build-out potential awareness plan. Next page, yeah, top of the next page.
Councilman Neal, do you have a question?
You notice I stumbled over that because I think it is without incurring.
I'm not sure what the intent is. One concurrence, it doesn't read quite right. In Objective 2.1, part
Yeah.
and or incurring unaffordable costs for additional water development. Does that flow from the first part? I'm not sure.
I think we should first of all get rid of the or and without incurring unaffordable
Unaffordable.
costs.
Or
I
incurring
know.
only affordable costs or something.
Maybe we can work on that a little bit. Because we know what they want to do. We don't want to extend ourselves to an unsustainable financial situation.
You want to be able to make informed decisions on how you utilize your utilities. And you want to know that a decision today might have an impact in the future.
Exactly.
So if, as Sally had said, 400 units were needed to be brought online for attainable housing, and City Council and Planning Commission said, we need it. Then they look at that, Kip then says, well, this is the impact. The council says, here's the money, go get the water we need to put us back to where we need to be because we're meeting the needs of the community.
Within some restraint, because just like the utility company will decide how much it costs to put underground utilities in, and they've got to be able to recover the cost.
Right.
So maybe the word recoverable cost within a reasonable time, because if you're going to spend all this money to add those units, show me where it's going to come back once they're established.
Well, it's going to come back through the utility rates. I mean.
Well, not to everybody else, from that unit itself. Should be its own profit center, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, the rates are established by the city for all the users based on how much water they use. So if you use less water, I'm going to pay a lower rate. If Larry, fills his swimming pool every day, then he's going to use more water. So the cash cow is the utility rate. The infrastructure is put in by those that are bringing the requirements to the community.
Sure.
So from the tap fee side, those are recoverable based on the impact of the system. From the utility standpoint, you use more water, you pay more stuff. Right? So conserving is a good idea and go from there. So there is no recovery from the water bill standpoint. That's the charge. It's like gas is $2.50, gas is $3, whatever it is. It's what it costs to run the system from that perspective. Larry's point about going to the awareness plan later on is to know what you're doing and make decisions in an appropriate manner. If the needs of the community need to be met today, and we have 3 years to be able to go out and acquire a tank or do whatever it takes to do that, then we meet the needs of the community today and we make the system work. It's going to be no different if he got a requirement from the state. We had to do something different to the water plant, because of the new EPA standard. That's got to be done. So it's just the process of understanding what you're doing through land use and the like as it relates to utilities. It's not limiting one or the other. It's saying, yes, we need this. So let's make sure if we don't have it now, we can get it tomorrow.
And we do it together,
Exactly.
land use and water use.
Okay, good. Objective 2.2 is pursuing opportunities to enhance water conservation and improve efficiency of water use, such as the EPA Water Sense program. So these 6 actions all relate to water conservation, preparing for drought, artificial turf, for example, being efficient with the metering system and other uses.
I guess I'm still a little unclear on action 2.26, prepare a drought mitigation plan. Don't we already have a plan, Kip?
Kind of. I say kind of, it's more, it's not a drought mitigation plan, it's more of just triggers and indicators for water restrictions. That makes sense?
Yeah. So maybe we need to expand that a little bit more beyond that scope and talk about other aspects. What happens during the drought and the consequences, how it impacts the water use, so on and so forth.
Well, we're pretty limited on what we could do, specifically if our local water disappears.
Well, then that needs to be said in the plan.
Christy, can you hear people from the audience?
Pretty well. Yeah.
Okay, because I could have Kip play Vanna and he could just move the microphone around the room so we can capture. Thank you.
Just to make it sure I understood it on that water action 2.2.6, there is a plan that touches on drought, but it could go further. So is the desire to have that reworded to say to enhance the existing plan to include more drought preparation?
No, I think just the way it's worded is okay. Just prepare. Let's start fresh, prepare, and include all those other aspects we just talked about.
Would the water wise program be something along that line that we used before? Because that worked effectively.
All part of it, yes. That's
Okay.
right. I'll be part of it.
That worked well.
Okay, moving on to water goal number 3, which is strengthen and expand the city's water resources within the city's financial capabilities. And the first objective is improve the city's ability to make appropriate investment decisions for their water resources with one action item, which is about continuing education. And I think that's who are we educating is city council and decision makers and the community.
Could also educate builders. They can conserve better or use better efficient products, the water sense program, those types of things. So it's a community-wide educational.
Broad, it's very broad, yeah. Okay, and then objective number 2 is about implementing projects that strengthen and expand the city's water resources that are appropriate for the community's growth plans and based upon the build out projection.
I might add on this particular objective, that's a very good objective, but in reality, when you're in the market for buying water rights and physical water and all the water, we're in a big league. We're competing with our Denvers and Auroras, monuments of the world. So that is a very tough market to crack. Kip does a very good job of scanning the classified ads and looking for new potentials for water. But in reality, it's nice to be able to expand, but also in reality, we might not be able to.
And then as I was reading this, I felt like water objective 3.3 was actually very similar to objective 3.2. 3.3 is evaluate other feasible water resources such as a reservoir and take appropriate action to preserve the city's ability to pursue them. Whereas 3.2 is really about strengthening the overall water resources, whether it's expanding reservoirs and buying water rights and those sorts of things. So,
but there is a distinction between those two. Water share is different than a water right.
okay, and that's where you see the distinction.
Yes.
Kip, is there ways for us to expand our well field our water sources without having to buy shares someplace else?
We already have plans to expand to the 1475. To expand on top of that, we would then have to go to the water court and add additional sources in our decrees and our augmentation plans, drill additional wells if water is available. The issue is most of our water lies in the Trout Creek Basin, and most of our wells would be there anyway. So whether you have one well or 3 wells in the same vicinity, that you're getting the same amount of water. You just pull more water out of one well as opposed to 3. So we would have to.
You see people like Aurora that have just put in a new reservoir in Hartselle. It's going to flow into 11 Mile, and it's going to get back to Aurora. Now, they figured out some way to afford it.
So it's not the affording of building. So we're trying to build a reservoir here too. So it's
Okay.
different water filling. It's different color of water, if you will. So in Hartselle, they're filling that most likely with Trans-Basin water, so augmentation water. We would be doing the same thing if we construct our reservoir. So as far as, Woodland Park's very unique where we're efficient with our water to where whatever we pump out of the ground, we put right back in, and the consumed portion is augmented with our augmentation. A lot of other places don't do that, where they might just release water from a certain location to meet those demands, where we actually physically use our augmentation water as part of our normal usage and it gets discharged.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that completes the water section. Moving on to wastewater. Goal number 1 is providing high-quality service to reliably collect and optimally treat wastewater in a fiscally and environmentally responsible manner. And underneath this goal are 5 objectives. The first being provide the highest quality wastewater collection and treatment possible on an everyday basis, which has 5 actions under it. All look reasonable. Objective number 2 is providing uninterrupted wastewater collection and treatment service to meet the needs of the community. So it's about preventative maintenance and repairs, minimizing backups and overflows or failures. Objective number 3 is project expenditures and revenues necessary to fund the operations.
Sally, what are O&M rates? Is that overhead and maintenance, or what's O&M?
Operations and maintenance.
Operations.
Should we spell that out? Probably.
Yeah.
Let's do that. And then so those are objective 1.4 is reduce natural resource consumption, promote reuse such as the golf course, improve safety and promote responsible sanitary sewer waste disposal. You can see the first action is about the golf course. The reuse of the biosolids, that's the composting operation.
Maybe we should say that.
Add composting.
Yeah,
in
slash
there.
Or in
compost.
parentheses.
I would assume most people would not know what a biosolid is. Or I don't anyway.
It's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. Ellen, are you calling this manure?
And educating our public also about the disposal of medications and hazardous chemicals. So that's objective 1.4. Objective 1.5 is improving the surrounding of the wastewater treatment plant. with visual appearance, landscaping. And also consider possible trail connections when utility easements are put in place.
I like the last one.
So does the Parks, Trails, and Open Space folks. Okay.
Kip, I got a question. Incinerator commodes used off-grid quite a bit where it absolutely burns the waste up. I know several people that have them. They make absolute your own little, not little, but system that you can put in a house that generates, takes all your wastewater and treats it and uses good water, potable water to put back in the house again. If you've got a problem with doing that, do you envision any of that happening?
The subcommittee actually talked about that. So taking gray water, turning it back into usable water to flush toilets, those type of things. You get into a whole slew of regulations with the state and treatment operator needs. We did talk about that. I mean, houses have to be built for that too. So that would be a side system that, I mean, you could even save more water for sure.
Yeah, from a home building perspective on the gray water, there's different regulations for gray water, and then I don't remember the terminology for the other stuff, but you can take water from your laundry, your dishwasher, and places like that. You can run it through a pre-treatment. It goes into a purple pipe, and the purple pipe then goes to your toilet. The issue you ultimately run into with water conservation is you got to make sure whatever's going down the pipe to the wastewater plant has enough liquid to be able to take the solids down the pipe to the plant. If you get to the point where we're doing such a great job of reducing our water usage, then the city's going to go out on the upstream stuff with a water truck, and they're going to flush the pipes out and use water anyway, but it takes it back into the system. So yes, there are plumbing codes that allow that to be done. It's done in New Mexico, Arizona, and other places like that. There's jurisdictions in Colorado that allow it. On the water conservation point, the EPA WaterSense program, it's a great opportunity as a home builder to be able to turn to a consumer and say, you know, if we spend a little bit more money on these water fixtures, we reduce the fixture count in the house. And so I can maybe bring a product that's more affordable in a tier 1 tap rather than in a tier 2 tap. So we can meet the needs of the community and not have to tell them, well, that extra hose bib you want is $5,600.
The system I was talking about does everything in-house. You send nothing down. You purify your own water, and yeah, I mean, you do all that, and you don't have to send anything to a water treatment plant. I've read some stuff on that.
You're always going to have some kind of byproduct or waste that's going to come. And
Right.
what we've experienced, so back in 2008, the wastewater treatment plant was over its capacity, its design capacity for organic loading. You know, we keep selling more taps, not a ton, but we keep selling them. So you would think water demand is going to go up, right? Just look at a bar or a graph, water, more taps, more water being produced, more water sold, more water should be coming to the wastewater plant. It's just the opposite, why we had to expand the plant, because the flow in the wastewater plant was consistently flat. So even though we're selling more taps, the demand at the wastewater plant, the organic strength went sky high while the hydraulics stayed the same. So we had to expand the plant. So back to Skip's point.
The only reason I'm saying is we're supposed to be a visionary for the future, not for now.
Mhm.
And you can't plan the future. Well, you can't look at the future unless you plan.
So from this standpoint, it would be tough. I mean, yes, we always want to look for the future. But if we take the water out of the ground and it doesn't make it back to the plant, we have to augment every single drop of that with augmentation water, and it would be very expensive. So you got to find that balance.
John, we did spend a lot of time talking about conservation, various methods, things you can do. We also talk about new technologies. We also talk about we don't want to close the door for if they do come in online. That just may offer the same thing you just talked about.
So for future, is what we talked about is reuse of wastewater. Trying to figure out, well, so our wastewater is one step away from drinking water. But to reuse that effluent and put it back into your system with clean water would be the ultimate goal. Just the, so we're getting there.
It is not a very popular thing to talk about,
Yeah, the
but at
optics
the
of
same
it.
time, you're right. We may be forced to really take a hard look at that and how it can be applied within the park.
So I think we might have to look at it if you've looked at the current water situation with the Blue Mesa, Lake Powell, and draining lakes, reservoirs for other states. It might trickle down to us sooner than we think.
No pun intended. Just a final note.
No, Sally, just one comment. I think you're right. Kip's right on target. The things about it is if we can recapture or reuse what we send downstream and don't get any credit for, it's not like if we produce what was the 545 acre feet a year, whatever it is, and if 20% of that or 30% of it is reprocessed. I mean, we've got naval ships and salinization machines that do that kind of stuff, and they're pulling water out of the ocean, and guess what fish do in the ocean, right? Same thing we do. So it's really, I mean, it's not like the world's going to know that, you know, suddenly everything coming out of the faucet comes out of the other end. So it's one thing that if we get into a true water crisis down the road, we've got the ability to reuse, recycle, and meet the needs of the community and ensure that those people that own property and want to build on their property or want to expand on their property or continue, they can continue to live here.
Larry's got one more
Yeah, I
thing.
got it. Kip, would you give the microphone back to Skip?
I was going to ask one question on that
Oh.
last topic before you move off it. So you mentioned that our water usage and getting credit for what goes back into the ground. Okay. So earlier we talked about that southeast portion of town, which is not served by city sewer. So they're all on septic. Do we get credit for basically their water usage essentially goes back into the ground through their septic system? Okay. You don't. Okay. Yeah. Is above. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Larry, I'm all yours.
Come up here to the podium a minute. I've
Been called to the principal's office here. All right, what's up?
I've got two statements and I got one question.
Sure.
First statement is, first of all, thank you personally for all the work you have done for this committee.
Oh, the whole group did it, not just me. I mean, we had a great group that was working about this.
Don't be bashful.
I
Don't be
will.
bashful. We worked as a very good team.
We did.
And we vetted everything several times over. But during our first initial meeting, Kip was quickly nominated to be the chairman of our subcommittee. And then we moved on to the scribe, and everybody else looked at each other and said, "You want to do that again too, Skip?" And he stood.
I'm
right
the
up
only
and
one that can read my own handwriting.
said- He said, "Yeah, I'll do it." So he did both the running this committee and describing and most of the legwork. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. And we had a very good team. Very
We
good
did.
team. Very good team.
I think that to add to that, we had a team that was really looking out into the future. What can we do in this comprehensive plan that will ensure the ability for the city to meet the needs of the community, whether it's known or unknown? I mean, the known is the single family tap side. The unknown is the multifamily and the commercial side. So those things will impact and to set into point the awareness plan so that when things come to you as the planning commission or to council for something, we know there's an impact. It's not a document that's designed to say, you're having an impact on the water system, so we're not going to do it. It's a design to say, if we're having an impact on the water system, is it a benefit to the community? And is there a way for us to go out into the future and replenish that impact.
The next question I had for you then, Skip, is that, and I know the answer, but I want you to tell this to the planning commission. What topics, top 3 topics that we talked about, do you think that we spent the most time?
Wow. Well, I know we spent a lot of time on water conservation and systems that we can use to conserve water. I know we spent a lot of time on improving, enhancing, whatever the word you want to use, the capacity and the quantity of water, different resources, water rights, physical water, storage of water, whether it's tank or a surface reservoir. Are we talking just on the water side?
No, we didn't spend too much time with wastewater.
No, it's working really good. We got plenty of
Water is
capacity.
the one that's the major concern.
But I think the last thing was knowing and understanding what we're doing and how it impacts the future. We go back to 1975, whatever it was, Sally, when the Cherokee deal came through. Was it 75? I wasn't
It
here.
was, I think, in the 70s.
Somewhere like that. I mean, the council back then was farsighted to see, and that's been the backbone for this community for a long time. If I missed it, Larry, chime in. And I
No,
can-
that was perfect. Thank you very much.
So,
And the last question is that the planning commission is now at a very critical point. I mean, we're taking input from all the subcommittees, trying to understand how they develop their documents. But it's our role and this responsibility at this point to go forward and craft a plan and a section that's consistent throughout the whole plan. And part of that is going to have to be dealing with inconsistencies between the various sections of the plan. Do you have any problem with us just taking those leadership role and say, we need to modify this change or change that or whatever?
no, I think that's your job.
Okay.
I mean, we
Uh,
did it as volunteers. We're bringing it forth. I mean, I'll take the worst case scenario. You could say it's a bunch of garbage and flush it down the toilet. I mean, you guys are getting. No, I mean, we concentrated on one section. We know that our one section is going to have an impact on others, and others are going to have an impact on utilities. So you guys have the hard job about interlacing the fingers to make it all work. It's an advisory document. It's a living document that potentially can be used and even modified occasionally or clarified occasionally as things happen. If the number in the report goes from 12,600 to 12,800 or 9,000 or whatever it is, that happens because of the decisions that are made in the community. I mean, I had a conversation earlier with Kip about Fountain. Larry knows about it. The city of Fountain is 500 taps upside down.
At least.
Yeah, they've maxed out their bonding issues. And if I went in to pull a water tap today, I'm not sure they'd issue it to me. I don't know whether I'd want to or not, but that could be. So doing these kinds of things and being farsighted is critical so that Woodland Park doesn't get into those situations. And obviously your advisory as a planning commission, the hard decisions are made by council. But, I mean, if for some reason somebody walked in the door today and said, I've got 200 attainable housing units I want to bring to the community. And, they're going to meet the rental demand or whatever it is. And city council says, yeah, we're 600 or 500 behind already as of the study of 4 or 5 years ago. So we need to do that to meet the needs of the community. Then one of the things that they would then do, turn to him and say, you got 3 years to go find whatever we got to do to replace this. Now give them the money and let them go do it.
That's the key, give them money.
I just might add, Skip was on the committee 10 years ago. And this committee also included Dean Waters, another builder developer in town, Ken Matthews, a former council member, and Mark Weaver is also on the Zoom. I wanted to ask Mark if you wanted to make any comments about your committee's work.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I just want to echo about Skip. He's done a great job with leading us and shepherding this group. He's highly intelligent and knows this world backwards and forwards. It's been great to serve with him. And we tried to look as far forward as we could and be reasonable at the same time. And try to balance a bit of, we want comprehensive planning and we also want reality. And we know that it's a tough line to walk, but we did the best that we could in this proposal.
And our DOLA reviewer, who was the land use and water planner who reviewed this section, actually commented that the rough draft not only meets, but goes beyond the statutory requirements. So nice work. And that was really good kudos.
And I had one, I felt really good about this report. I felt good about the water department from the experience I've had dealing with them. I had a call at one time back with vibration in the pipes long after business hours. I called less than an hour, someone was there. Kip was there a few minutes after that. The next morning at 8 o'clock, they were digging it up and replaced the connection in a matter of hours. It was just very, service, it was just incredible, I thought. So thank you.
We have a great team. They make me look really good. So the credit goes to them. Thank you.
I've got one more addition to this entire section, and that would be added to the background section. I forgot it until I saw it on my notes. Can we have a paragraph just addressing other utilities, talking about electricity and phone and internet and gas? All those things are done by private, quasi-private entities, and they do a very good job of supplying those type of things as a utility that we rely on. But I think we should recognize that.
I think that's a good point. We can add a short paragraph about the other providers for utilities.
And John, I'm done with this one.
On the utilities advisory committee. Right now, they're having a problem in Oregon because they're so hot that they're not having enough electricity. They're going to be blackouts, brownouts. Do we plan for that? In other words, do we sit down and say, what are the megawatts required? Do we buy it from the grid, which I know we can do? How do we, maybe that's under emergency management, but how do we handle that?
We only plan for the water and the wastewater. IREA would cover everything else associated with that electric.
But somewhere within our organization, city, we should be looking.
Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood your question. So at all of our facilities, we have backup power as far as generators. Luckily, we have lots of elevation variations in our town. So even if we lose power, our storage tanks are adequate to supply around 3 to 4 days of water, which is pretty good in the water world. And then in the 2000s, Y2K, we wired all of our pump stations so we could bring in generators and power those pump stations to throw water up to the tanks, basically, so we have water. And then the wastewater plant was just expanded. We spent over $200,000 on a generator to power the entire plant, where before we didn't have that
We
capability.
can go to the storage tank plus refill the tank with running the generator.
Correct.
Good.
Okay, that was great. Let's move on to public safety, emergency management. Thank you, Skip, and Mark. You're welcome to stick around. We'll move on to public safety. Their introduction, the only thing I saw which really jumped out at me was the increase in the number of calls that police, fire, and EMS have received in the last decade. Over 10,000 more calls so that there are over 30,450 calls. I think, so that's very significant. And then I just saw one typo.
There's a
Teller
typo.
count.
Teller,
On
yeah,
teller.
teller, yeah.
Sally,
Yes.
Uprad is miscalled out in that paragraph. They're actually UPass Regional Hospital Service District now. Yes.
Okay. And then Teller County needs to be
Mhm.
fixed, not Tell County.
I think in the background section too is a very good point that the discussion we're talking about resistancy, not resistancy.
Resiliency.
Thank you very
Resilience.
much. It is included with a great discussion on that because that was new from the 2010 plan that
Yes.
was discussed. So it's very important to understand that concept as a community. So I'm glad that's included.
It's actually one of the concepts we had to discuss at length because there's a very fine line between mitigation and resiliency. So it took some discussion so that we were all on the same page with it.
Good. Thank you.
And I learned a lot because I made the assumption resiliency was actually more preparedness, being ready for disasters, as opposed to what it really means is how quickly do we recover
Yes.
from a disaster. So I really enjoyed working with this group because I learned a lot in this area. So yeah, I think the background is very helpful and good photos. And we'll change the names throughout for Uprad.
You know, there was one thing in the first paragraph that just hit me when I was reading it. The police department works hard to maintain safe places. That's a friendly way. Works hard struck me, and I was thinking strives to maintain. Anyway, it's just wordsmithing. It can say works hard. I just thought it was. Pardon me.
Strive actually does sound better.
Yeah, I was thinking strive.
And it goes along with our core values because that's all about striving. Okay, let's step through their goals, objectives, and actions. So beginning with the first goal is to continue to provide excellent public safety and emergency services. There are 3 objectives under this goal. And the first objective is fostering partnerships and educating the community about crime trends, personal safety, neighborhood crime prevention, response strategies, emergency management programs, and the role of the law enforcement community. So there are 6 actions underneath that deal with participating in community meetings, updating their webpage and Facebook, partnering with Northeast Teller County Fire Protection, and we'll call them NETCO for now on. That's kind of their short name.
Is that what they like to be called?
Yeah, they do.
Okay, let's do it that way.
Yeah, just for tonight's conversation. Encourage people to sign up for emergency warnings, partnering with Homeland Security, our county partners, and improving coordination. So those are the 6 actions under that objective. All good?
Well, it is useful just for the other members of the planning commissioners. We had a lot of police input on this too, aside from Robin, to other people coming in. Robin was pulling the laboring oar for all the way through, but So I believe that this is satisfactory to the police department as well.
Is the fire
Yes.
department there too?
Pardon?
Is the fire
Yes.
department there too?
Yes.
The fire department is good.
Yeah, this group did have great participation with the county emergency manager, the fire chief, police department, and then Lee served as the scribe. Should have recognized you earlier, Lee. And they met way more than the 4 times we had scheduled. I think maybe at least 3 or 4 more times. But I still think Parks, Trails, and Open Space has you beat. Dawn.
They knew there would be a prize at the end.
They were,
Our council representative is here as well.
oh, yes. Councilman Neal. So he did a great job too. And then objective number 2 is plan the expansion of law enforcement protection to correlate with the changes in the city's needs. So this is important that, our police operations is 24/7, well-staffed to be able to respond at all hours of the day and night. So that's important. And there are 4 objectives or 4 actions under this objective. And then objective number 3 is building a community that is resistant to criminal activity through community involvement, crime prevention efforts, and encouraging young people to avoid drugs and alcohol, stay in school, and contribute positively to society and feel comfortable around the Woodland Park Police Department. So we've always had a very active school resource officer program, and that's been very positive, as well as teen court and other events that the community policing approach offers. So 6 objectives or actions under that area. Then moving on to goal number 2, which is more emergency management focused, which is raising awareness of the citizenry to the risks of fire, promote fire preparedness, and facilitate mitigation in and around the city of Woodland Park. For the second goal, this goal has 3 objectives under it. And starting with the first objective is identifying opportunities to raise fire awareness and preparedness within the community. So there are 3 actions under that, which include, having annually a fire preparedness day in conjunction with NETCO, the city and CUSP and a number of agencies. We have done these kinds of things, but it's been sporadic. It's not been on an annual basis. And other opportunities to coordinate with NETCO, the Sheriff's Office, emergency management, to promote wildfire awareness and preparedness. And lastly is the evacuation plans. So that's objective number 1.
I'd like to talk about a couple of these actions.
Okay.
First one being 2.12 in conjunction with 2.1.3. I think this would be a good place to introduce the community wildfire protection plan requirement. If we've all had a chance to read this week's Courier, there was a great article in the paper this week talking about communities and having community wildfire protection plan. And they talked about how that relates to state statutes, what the state is doing, what the various organizations are doing. So I think it's an opportunity to introduce that community wildfire protection plan into the plan and encourage its development. There are various elements of it, but I think we need to be very specific in talking about that particular plan and encourage these groups to come together to do that. And by doing that, I think it will also help us meet our state statute requirements for that, which has recently been beefed up by the state. So and it's very important for our community because we're in a high risk fire area. Why not follow what the state says, incorporate it, embrace it, and move forward with that kind of nomenclature.
Larry, are you proposing modifying one of the objectives, the action items, or adding a new action item to 2.14 perhaps?
Well, I think 2.12 and 2.13 are basically talking about that community connection plan.
So some suggestion.
Maybe just simply say to go ahead and first of all, like to coordinate the efforts to come together to prepare a community wildfire protection plan, which would promote wildfire awareness and preparedness, and it also includes provisions for the evacuation plans of the next section. So maybe include it with the first one, Lee, and then reference it again, maybe in the third one, or tie it together. So it's a periodically review evaluation plans, maybe periodically review community wildfire protection plans.
Who's going to fund it?
We'll let the city council worry about that.
Yeah.
That's their primary responsibilities.
So you're suggesting 2.13 periodic review community wildfire protection.
Yeah.
And evacuation plans.
Yes. Because evacuation is a very important element.
Mike and Robin, does that sound right for you, or do you have another suggestion of how to word it or anything else?
You just want to include the CWPP basically in both of those items and reference it specifically. Yes. That sounds fine. Yeah. Matter of fact, before the whole meeting, I wanted Sally to add the CWPP as a relevant document in this section as well. I mean, we just added it to the utility or to the water, but it's okay. It can be relevant in more than one section.
Yes.
So,
Okay, so we should add a relevant document to the existing one.
This is Christy Bruce. Is there a desire to update the Colorado Wildfire Protection Plan, or just to ensure the community is aware of it?
No, I think we
talking about update.
I think it's both.
it was
Okay.
drafted in 2010. It was updated in 2017. This is out of our scope because it's a much broader area than just Woodland Park. So it probably will be updated. I don't know whether on a 5-year or
They're
what's
supposed to be updated 5 years.
right?
Is that Netco that does that?
No,
Or is it
it's
just
an
Telecom?
area. This includes quite a wide area.
It's the Greater Woodland Park Wildfire
Yeah,
Protection
yeah.
Plan. It is
And just
driven
as-
by CUSP.
When we had the Healthy Forest Program, which came after the Haman Fire, that was an area of protection all around Woodland Park. Most of it was outside the city limits. And I know they harvested a lot of wood. I know that the power plant down the Springs Drake was buying some of the pellets because at that time they had to burn so many whatever pellets, which they don't do any.
They are
So-
actually currently right now working on our eastern side. They're doing a lot of removal and clearing out up on the Rampart Range area. That's what all the
Right.
logging trucks coming down through town.
Are we involved with that along with the county?
Not directly, that's actually Forest Service. Because it's all in Forest Service
Because
land.
It's going to take more than just Woodland Park to get that to work. That's a big area. Like you said.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of gets into the previous Trying to. Well, but I put a lot of this in the 1.1.6, which is the role of the Woodland Park Emergency Operations Liaison or Coordinator to coordinate with all of the various entities in and around the city, whether it's the Forest Service or CUSP or what have you.
Who is that right now?
It's not currently an officially designated position. However, for the city, it has traditionally been one of the commanders of the PD. I had been working extremely closely with that commander and have been doing an extent of emergency management classes. So I've been slowly taking up those reins.
So would one of the recommendations be to appoint a person like that and get it done?
Yeah, and that's part of the point of
How do
including
we
it in the
go
plan.
about doing that?
That's above my pay grade.
Yeah, well, actually, John, we had some.
John, we
discussion.
list the what, not the how we get there. The how is.
Okay.
116 was drafted to refer to a liaison without stating we're supposed to hire one because it was sort of, that was the question, who has the role to do that, the city council, but there's a liaison role that should be filled in some manner.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
that's the way it was drafted.
I see.
That'd be excellent to do.
Yeah, the one thing I've learned from this, John, is there's an endless amount of work that could be done here. It's literally endless. I mean, you think that, when I first came to this, I thought, well, maybe we're not really big enough yet to have someone full-time worrying about this. That's wrong. Okay. Yeah. The number one problem in this whole area, in my opinion, is complacency. And when you pay someone to sit around and worry about this all day long, be amazed at what can come up. Okay. And so I'd like to push for this however we can, because
On top of Rampart Range, you're clearing out all that stuff for mitigation up there, because that was the big threat for Waldo Canyon, because it was going to come over that hill. And they've been working on it up there. We need to figure out how we can work on it, where we get some funds to do it.
yeah, but
Whether it be federal, whether it be state, whatever it would be.
and the mitigation is only one of the arms of this octopus, John. Okay, there's many other facets to this.
Sure.
And that this coordinator could work on.
John, part of the being able to get funds is where the county hazard mitigation plan comes into effect. And that's why the city council had to actually sign on to that, is in order for us to get federal funds, either for recovery after or mitigation prior to a disaster, we have to be involved in a hazard mitigation plan.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Christy Bruce. Just a couple of things to note. I believe the DOLA comments recommended that we add some reference to the county hazard mitigation plan. And I know that we have some of those specific statistics in the existing conditions that we might bring into the background to kind of bolster that a little bit more and talk about what the hazards are, especially including fire. And also, I believe that community wildfire protection plans can lower the cost of insurance for a community. So there is public incentive for that.
A great point. So add the Teller County HMP to our relevant documents
It's
and
already
let's,
there.
what is? Okay,
Teller County Hazard Mitigation Plan 20.
let's mention it. Yeah, in that same area.
I wanted to, again, I wanted to introduce the Community Wildfire Protection Plan provision. Because in that article I read, it talks about there are state monies and federal monies directly related to our community adopting that plan. And then you're eligible, just like you were saying, Robin. So it's important that we just clarify and.
Yep.
make
And there's,
sure that we
but
got
again,
that
the
base
same thing
covered.
goes with Teller County HEP. There's FEMA money there if you have a plan that you're signed up for.
And we want to be a very active and important partner with that.
And that's the other role of a liaison or a coordinator is looking for this money. There's tons of it out there. But you got to go after it. They're not going to come drop it out of a helicopter in your doorstep.
You know, when Jim Ignatius was a county commissioner, he took a big role in that healthy forest. And maybe we could get somebody that lives around here, like Stone or something like that, or you have Jim help him, or get some information going on it, so that we could get that connection back again. I mean, it seems like it takes forest fire to do that, but I don't want that, but maybe we can get that revised.
That's a terrible thought.
I've already written myself a note when I go to Teller County Wildland Fire Commission to ask CUSP about the CWPP and its next revision.
Okay.
Good job.
All right.
And actually, it may just warrant an action by itself.
That's
Is
true.
to implement the CWPP and update in the near future. Yeah,
I guess as a planning commissioner, I'd highly recommend that we add another action item to
just
that.
pull it out as a
Yep.
separate action item.
Good idea.
Okay,
With all the smoke we've been seeing, it's a good reminder that, thank goodness, we're not in a drought area. Back of it. Right. It's time to do that.
Because Southwest has been running a kind of fire patrol, so to speak, where they go out after the weekend and they're looking at for
Campfires.
Sure. Good.
I've seen that driving out in some of the back roads too. I stopped just driving out at 8 in the morning. People have already picked up the campsite and gone, and the fire is restarted. I mean, I can see flames coming out. So
Maybe we just said we won't gonna allow any more camping in the national forest. That might get their attention.
Hey, that it's all a traffic problem.
Yeah.
okay, so objective 2.2 is identify opportunities to increase fire mitigation, which is what we've really been talking about, working with the Teller County Wildfire Council, conducting fire mitigation. We did learn the NETCO is now getting involved in chipping days and weeks, and they have purchased a chipper and did 2 weeks, I think.
It's actually a countywide program and the chipper is shared through the county. It's being run under the Wildland Fire Commission.
Okay,
So like last week, it was out in the 4 Mile area. It'll have, it's traveling around the county based on days that the fire department's independently set up to use it and have the staff to run it.
so a lot of activity that's going on, but a ton of work to do. And then the last objective is about protecting tax funds allocated for emergency medical services and NETCO. And this is encouraging the city council to protect tax monies. These organizations, NETCO is funded through property tax. And so if, for example, city council were to have a request for a business improvement district, it might eliminate that property tax going, that TIF, the tax increment financing. The DDA is an example, business improvement district, those sorts of things. So that was the purpose of this objective. Okay, moving on to resiliency. Create a community that is prepared for and has the resiliency to recover from emergency incidents, utilizing the basic capabilities as recognized by the National Disaster Recovery Framework. So, and this was big kudos from our DOLA reviewers, who were very happy to see this. It was part of our contract to include this section into the comprehensive plan.
You know, Sally, it's the first time I really read the word redundancy in a positive sense
Yeah,
when I was reading it.
Yeah, it's critical in many systems, having that.
There's always a backup. There's always another agency that can take control of something else. Yeah, I agree.
So for a communication system, if you were here during the Hayman fire, communication was a real challenging issue.
And that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember them going through neighborhoods with a horn and saying time to leave.
Part of that would be a function of the 911 system to do reverse 911 and that type of thing. I think they're set up to do that.
We are, but the problem is so many people are dependent on solely a cell phone nowadays. And if you don't register that cell phone with that service, they can't call you. Where your regular phone line, hardline phone numbers get automatically downloaded in that system, your cell phones do not.
Is that different than Netco where they send you the briefings of the road closures?
It's
Or is that
completely
same
different. It's
thing?
different than Nixle.
Okay.
Nixle is strictly by text.
Then Robin, it comes back to education.
It comes back to education. And in fact, we've had dispatchers out at the farmer's market at least once a month this summer, interacting with our community about alerts. And helping them sign up for Everbridge and get set up so they can receive those alerts.
If we could get awareness campaign out within the city and send some brochures or something.
We
for everybody
actually,
to register.
have flyers on the grocery carts at City Market. We're working in conjunction with the 911 Authority Board in the Springs to make that happen. They've been running some advertisement on TV. You may or may not have seen it. I've seen it quite a few times. They're running some ads in the Courier as well. And like I said, we've been out at the farmers market, literally interacting with people and helping them sign up. Because we recognize that we do have a percentage of older population who aren't as computer savvy and may need that assistance. We also have a population that doesn't necessarily understand the difference between Nixle and Everbridge. Everbridge actually bought out Nixle, so it's kind of been absorbed into that. However, Nixle is only a text piece. If you don't sign up for peak alerts and get yourself set up to actually receive that reverse phone call, it doesn't happen if you have a cell phone.
If you get some to our shop, we'll pass them out for it.
Okay,
Judge,
I will work on that.
Okay.
This is explicitly mentioned in Action 114. Work with school district, chamber of commerce, and other appropriate groups to encourage people to register and receive the notifications.
Just nobody's done it.
Well, yeah, but it's
Aspirational, right?
well, not an aspiration. They mentioned they're already doing things
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at the farmer's market. I've seen them out. I've seen people out.
Yeah, notification is pretty big on my, was pretty high on my priorities. And not only making sure we had all of the possible ways to do notification, but we also tested on a somewhat regular basis to verify we had, because everyone thought reverse 911 was a great, perfect system. But in a lot of ways, communities found out the hard way that they didn't have the bandwidth and the system couldn't, it would take 8-10 hours to call everyone on the list. Well, that's not enough. That's way too long. Okay. So we've added that on there. And whatever we can do to include the notification, it's just an ongoing thing. You just continue to review it and enhance it as you need to.
That's part of us being out and educating, is that even though we're signing them up to get the reverse calls, we're also encouraging them to make sure that they are signed up to get the text alerts or the email alert, because in the event of a funneling because of bandwidth, you're going to get those faster than the phone call. Because we all know if we have a major emergency, all your relatives from out of town trying to call you, make sure you're okay. And that impacts how fast these phone numbers can come in, because they all come in on long distance lines. So in addition to people being signed up to get that reverse number, reverse call, we're trying to make sure that they're also set up to receive it via email and or text, so that they have that backup that's going to be a little bit more efficient and less affected by
The
bandwidth.
message you put on Facebook and social media, that would be a good place to say, are you signed up for Woodland Park to do this stuff? and have something where they can download a picture of it? and print
We
it out?
actually did have it on the Facebook page with a QR code that you could go to that you could just scan with your phone and go to the appropriate website.
It's on your.
It was put on our Facebook page
Okay,
about a month and a half ago.
but you have periodic blurbs,
Mhm.
and that would be a great place to remind everybody.
Yep, that's the plan.
So we have 5 objectives that deal with communication, the local supply chain. This was interesting to me, but we all felt the effects of supply with gasoline when the pass was closed after the Waldo Canyon fires and the mudslides. I mean, that was an eye opener. Cyber attacks are also pretty devastating to communities. The mental health support, and DOLA was very pleased to see that.
That's a great section.
Sally, in that one, I'll mention one too, and I have a comment and reaction. The 342, the mental assessment program, that's something which is ongoing and not necessarily related to emergencies. I thought it made more sense to move it to the end of 1.3 as 1.3.7. So it's not sort of lost here. It's not that's something that goes on every day, and it doesn't wait for there to be a fire or a flood or something else going on.
Maybe we can reference them in both sections, because
Perhaps.
I think
Perhaps,
it's such an important program and such a big impact to our
Yeah, let's do
residents.
that. Let's like the TAP program. We mentioned the TAP program, water tap in like 3 different places.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just do the same thing here.
3 different ways.
Are you good with that, Lee? And then the last objective deals with the utilities service system, delivery system. So we want to make sure we have plenty of redundancy there.
I had a hard time wrapping around my mind what local supply chain was at first.
Hmm.
And then I
Oh.
sat there and boy, thought, well, yeah, it's got to be water, it's got to be
Food.
gasoline, it's got to be food, it's got to be equipment, all these different things that we take for granted. And if we don't have because of a disaster, we have a plan to take care of that.
Larry, toilet paper.
Toilet paper, right? About gas. You can't get gas in those fire trucks. They can't do anything for you.
That's true.
Yeah, we did. And most of our emergency response vehicle, to include our patrol cars, fill up at the local gas stations.
Of any of the documents we talked about so far, does anybody have a critical supply plan included in those plans?
Not to my knowledge.
We
I
need
think
to-
it's an emerging thing in emergency management, and having your finger on it is the first step.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and say we identify. Let's go do it.
So that brings us to the end of our 2 chapters, and just again want to send kudos to this subcommittee that worked so hard in having to create a whole new section as well. Really did an outstanding job. And Councilman Neal, do you have any comments about your team or the outcomes?
I want to do my 2 questions.
Okay.
Cut, get the quick.
I mean, to put you on the spot.
Yeah, the only comment was, I was impressed. I mean, Mike and Robin and Lee and everybody participated. We had some heavy discussions back and forth. But at the end of the day, I think everybody's goals got into it. I was very impressed with how I don't like very verbose documents because people don't read them. They get too wordy. I think we were able to consolidate and hit the salient points pretty succinctly, but they were very targeted so that the important things bubbled to the surface and were captured. That's my observation. I think
Neil?
Mike did, and Robin did a great job, and Lee, you were a great scribe.
I think that's a good point. And I think you could probably 99% of the time extend that forward to all of the subcommittees that worked on this plan at this point. They've all taken their job very seriously and they have vetted inside and out. They've made the councils, the planning commission jobs so much easier.
Absolutely. I mean, I have great expectations once this comes forward to your body and gets a final approval and then makes it up to the council for the endorsement. I think it's going to be a great product.
This has given you as a council great insight to how this works for the people to come together and the input from the cities so they feel part of it. You've seen that.
Well, what the people don't see is John and I talk and we share thoughts, and it helps me as a councilman when I hear, from Chairman DeVoe and any citizen, city staff, citizens. It helps me formulate how I want to cast my votes, because you're the foundation of the citizens' desires. I mean, they come up in so many different ways that coming directly to a council member, that just doesn't happen. I thought I would have emails and stuff like that all the time. And it's like pulling teeth. So you just have to know who to go out and talk to on the staff, which citizens are very well connected. They've got their interest in it, the heart in it. So you know who to listen to, the council, the commissions, the boards. It's just having a very informal communication to hear the citizens, because I'm just representing their voice. It's not my vote, it's their vote.
That's why we all get paid the big bucks.
That's right. That's right. The very big bucks.
I guess Robin, Mike and Lee and Neil, I wanted to make a point to thank each and every subcommittee for the work they've done. They've made our job as a planning commission member much easier. We appreciate that. This section is very clear. It's very easy to understand. The intent is spelled out. And you guys have done a very good job. Thank you. Thank you very much. The question I have is, what 3 topics did you guys spend the most time talking about?
One of the things in emergency management is risk assessment. So you have to look at your community and you have to say, okay, what affects our community? And for example, should we worry about hurricanes here? No, okay. But wildfire, yes. But when there's many other things in there, and we spent a lot of time on this. And at the end of the day, it became just crystal clear to me that when we're talking about this risk assessment, we're dealing with people's fears, which means we're dealing with their emotions. Okay. I grew up in Texas and survived a tornado cowering in a meat locker in a grocery store. Okay. But I don't worry about tornadoes here personally, because that's, but again, it's an individual fear thing. So we ended up going down a few rabbit holes because we got caught up in that. But at the end of the day, Sally helped us kind of pull out of that. And I do want to thank her for her efforts to help us kind of get over that. But for the most part, we spend a lot of time on fire and wildfire, as I think is appropriate. As there's 3 surveys that were done as part of this that we could reference, and in all 3, wildfire was our top concern.
Good, thank you. And then the last thing again, as I mentioned to the utility group, is that it's now our responsibility to take this coordinated, take out the conflicts between the sections. We want you to understand that We appreciate your good work. We have a job to do. If you see some further modifications of what we talked about, we want you to understand why. Okay. And not be offended.
Yeah,
I know Mike's easily.
this is kind of like when I walked my daughter down the aisle and I handed her off to her new husband. I just kind of said, she's your problem now.
I can relate that. I did that last week.
Okay, so this is in your hands now.
Great analogy.
One of the things that happens, because I was here during Heman, and this is interesting. I had the car business at that time. We had already had all the cars evacuated and taken down to Springs. So we were ready for the records. They were going through Woodland Park and they were about 10 minutes away of evacuating Woodland Park. They got everything together and the wind shut. That's the only reason it didn't happen. I mean, 24 is one way, you had all those plans done to get out of here. Okay, it can happen again. It can happen.
Yeah, John, I tell people that, I mean, I've only been here 20 years, okay? But in the 20 years I've been here, I have loaded my house up and evacuated it in prep for evacuation 3 times, okay? Once for Waldo, we were on pre-evac and mainly we just took stuff down to the Springs, but we actually never left. And then obviously for Waldo, we completely evacuated. And then once we just had a fire in the neighborhood at the end of the street and it got into the forest. And then you stand in my front yard and you look to your right and you see the fire. You look to your left, you see the staging ground with all of the Forest Service trucks parked. So when your house is between the staging area and the fire, you start packing up. So it's a serious problem here. I think everyone's on board with it. And that's why, but to be, I want to give one of our members credit, which was Peter, and he was one of our early members and had to drop out. But his vision was, moving here, and he just doesn't see the awareness. He doesn't see much efforts being made to make our citizenry aware of the fire danger, what things they can do. So that's why we want to push this annual awareness day, and see how much mileage we can get out of that. And then I have one other part of this to add as far as other members on our committee. We started out with 4 members of the PD, and for circumstances that you all know, 3 of those had to drop out during the season. Robin has picked up the ball for everyone and carried that entire load. She never missed a meeting. And without her, telling you, a lot of this would not have happened. So she deserves all of our thanks and gratitude for the effort she's put in here.
So moving on, our next meeting will be on the 26th of August at 5:30. And the chapters will be transportation and drainage, community well-being, which includes recreation, education, health, age-friendly or senior services, and civility, as well as the arts, culture, and community heritage section. So we're two meetings down, and then on September 9th, we'll have the land use, growth, housing, community character design, and city finances, because we can have all these visions, but if we don't have the financial wherewithal, it won't get done.
Do we have
So
other items at 7 o'clock scheduled on those? Because it's any of these getting at 7, it's gonna be hard to finish.
we don't for the next meeting, and September 9th, I don't think we have anything there.
Okay, well, hopefully that continues.
Yes.
Which one of those last 2 meetings, Sally, was a good time to talk about the
The
future
map.
land use map?
Future land use map we'll do at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay, future land use map. Okay.
Christy, do you have any final comments for us?
Just again, want to say how impressed I am with all the subcommittees. You know, usually it's our team that writes all of these, and it's really incredible to see the community and all the different aspects of the community build their own goals, objectives, and actions, and how much it rings true with your community and who you are, and just really impressed with how much time and dedication went into it. And thanks also to Planning Commission for the detailed review. I think a lot of the things that you brought up are really positive adds, and just want to thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
And one last note, Logan Simpson has started to look at the land use code review. And what we are leaning toward is what's called unified land use code, which combines the subdivision regulations, the zoning regulations, mobile home park regulations. So and they've done a table, and I'll share that with you all next time as well. But that's mostly work that will be done by the city attorney, the staff, and the consultant.
Do you have a time frame on this?
On the code review before the end of the year.
Okay, that's fair.
And Laura?
Mr. Chairman, there are some cones outside on the street. Some of them may surround your vehicle. If you could move the cone and then put the cone back when you get out, or you should be able to get out without moving the cones. It's just that they're there set up for the COVID bus for the farmer's market so that people don't park there overnight. So if there's a cone in front of your vehicle, don't be upset.
Don't squash it.
So I move to adjourn.
Move
Well, I was
to,
just thinking,
I got a comment on what Sally just said about the unified land use code. That is a great tool for us to streamline, to simplify, and to remove redundancy in all our codes by consolidating, by doing that. And I'd also encourage you to take a look at, and Kip's not here anymore, take a look at the utilities that have land use connections that we've talked about, because there are some sections in the code that will need to be changed to implement what we're talking about tonight.
okay, we'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else for the good of the order?
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those signify yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Thank you, folks. Thanks for what you've done. It's so good for us to get to meet. This is what makes the meetings when the people come.
It was really good.
Good job.
You guys.
Really good.
Yeah.